Sometimes you wish they'd never adapted it at all. Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 worst live-action remakes of animated movies and TV shows.
The only thing I like better than an eggplant burger is a chocolate-covered eggplant burger.
With hot sauce. Ra-cha-cha-cha.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at the films that completely bastardized the animated TV shows and movies of our childhoods. Because anime deserves a list of its own, we won't be including it here, despite how awful Dragon Ball Evolution was.
First one to touch the ground loses. Prepare to eat dirt.
Number 10. Masters of the Universe. If you were a child of the 80s, you undoubtedly grew up watching He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and playing with the action figures of your favorite characters. So you were probably excited when in 1987, the show was adapted for the big screen. Unfortunately, the movie didn't perform well with critics or at the box office.
Stay where you are, He-Man! One more move, and your friends will not live to see another day.
It's since become something of a cult classic, and some people do love it. But we have to agree with reviewer Chris Egertson when he called it, quote, an objectively bad film with a big heart.
I'll never kneel to you. Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Number 9. Mr. Magoo.
Hello, sir.
Stacy, aren't you a sight for sore eyes?
He may stumble from one blunder to the next, but that's what makes this character so lovable. The nearsighted Mr. Magoo has been around since 1949, entertaining children and adults alike with his accidental antics. In the 60s, he peaked in popularity, starring in the animated feature Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol and his own television shows. By the late 90s, however, people weren't exactly begging for his return, which made the decision behind this live-action movie starring Leslie Nielsen pretty puzzling.
Just look at the size of those pants.
It was universally panned by critics, and even accused of being insensitive by the National Federation of the Blind. Yikes.
The eggplant mobile.
What? Watch your head!
Number 8. Transformers: Age of Extinction.
Sweetie, hand me my alien gun.
Here you go.
The Transformers movies are in the habit of making around $1 billion each at the box office, but that doesn't mean they're all quality films. We could let them misfire slide because we know they have their fan base, but for lovers of the original cartoon series, Age of Extinction was just obnoxiously awful. The fourth movie to be released in the series, it lacked a coherent story, believable acting, and competent direction.
I hate cheap knockoffs.
It was honored with 7 nominations at the 35th Golden Raspberry Awards, and the consensus on Rotten Tomatoes put it simply enough. Fans of loud, effects-driven action will find satisfaction, and all others need not apply.
It was for a reward. That was it. That was why. For money.
Number 7. Garfield the Movie.
What am I gonna do with you?
Love me, feed me, never leave me.
Garfield, the lasagna-loving cat who hates Mondays, originated, of course, in a comic strip, but eventually made his way onto our TV screens in the 1980s. When the story was adapted for the big screen in the early aughts, we had our misgivings, especially after seeing the tagline, "Get ready for frisky business." And we were right to be concerned, because despite this CGI mess making $200 million, it holds a justifiably dismal 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. Even Bill Murray, who voices the famous fat cat, seems to have had regrets about the role.
So do you have any regrets?
Garfield, maybe?
Number 6. The Smurfs.
Who's clumsy now, huh?
It's probably best if you just separate this live-action animation mashup from the Smurfs you know and love. Despite a star-studded cast including Neil Patrick Harris and the voices of Katy Perry and Fred Armisen among others, throwing the little blue creatures into New York City was just never gonna work.
You smurfed with the wrong girl.
The consensus from critics was that the film was created purely for the kids, since it was too simple and formulaic for the audiences who grew up with the 80s cartoons. The movie lacked any of the cleverness from the comics or TV series, and because of that, we definitely won't be rewatching this one. Number 5. Jem and the Holograms.
Showtime synergy.
Let's be real, this campy 80s show could have just stayed pure in our memories, because fans weren't exactly clamoring for a big screen adaptation. The movie totally bombed at the box office, not even managing to make back half of what was spent to create it, with a revenue of only $2.5 million.
This is us?
No, it's Photoshop.
In fact, it was so badly received that director John M. Chu said he received hate mail, adding that, quote, "reviewers have been harsh, to say it lightly." Hey, at least it didn't lose as much money as another girl band adaptation, Josie and the Pussycats, which fell short of its estimated production budget by $24 million.
I like this. It's got shiny knobs.
No. No.
Number 4. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
What are you?
Well, miss, we're ninjas.
No matter when you grew up, you probably have a soft spot for these crime-fighting humanoid turtles. We've all debated whether we're more a Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, or Donatello. When they made live-action TMNT movies in the 90s, we wholeheartedly embraced them. But when the franchise was rebooted in 2014, fans had good reasons to be skeptical, thanks to all-new character designs and the involvement of Michael Bay.
Yeah, I'm a talking turtle. And you're a human nerd.
Predictably, the fun and magic of the original series were completely lost in translation, making for a dull, generic, and painful-to-watch product placement extravaganza.
Enough. The lesson is over.
Number 3. Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Alvin!
Even if you only ever watched the trailer for this movie, you know it was primed to be one of the most annoying movies of all time. This is another film that was clearly just meant to keep the kids distracted, with bathroom humor and fast-moving CGI action, and it doesn't offer up much else. To be fair, even on the small screen, Alvin and the Chipmunks can be a little bit irritating, but this movie undeniably took it one step further. Critic Peter Bradshaw went so far as to call it, quote, thoroughly brain-dead. And it's tough to disagree.
The look on your face says it all, Dave.
Number 2. Super Mario Brothers.
Strap your belt on, kid. We're going in.
By this point, we all know that adapting video games for the big screen doesn't always yield positive results. But maybe back in 1993 they hadn't gotten the memo yet. With the success of the Super Mario games on the NES in the 80s, creators tried to profit by making a variety of TV shows starring the famous plumber. None of those lasted long, so movies were the next logical step.
Excuse me, Miss Lady, can you tell me where I am?
Yeah, you're in my way. Big suckers.
What are these people?
At the time, the effects were considered impressive, but critics agreed that the storyline was lacking and the film was relying purely on the recognizable characters. Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some dishonorable mentions.
Have I gone mad?
Afraid so.
Bullseye! I'm so smart it hurts!
You're standing on the soldering iron.
Or it's that! Ooh, hot! Ooh. Step out of the vehicle with your hands up, please!
It's okay, officers. I'm with the FBI.
Step out of the vehicle now.
Hey, look! Your face is all blurry.
So's yours.
Number 1. The Last Airbender.
Some of the great monks can meditate for 4 days.
What is there to say about this movie that hasn't been said already? The award-winning cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender was beloved by both audiences and critics, so it makes sense that a movie adaptation was inevitable. Before the film was even released, it was mired in controversy over the decision to cast white actors in Asian roles, prompting many to boycott the film altogether. When it finally did hit theaters, it was completely panned by critics, with Roger Ebert calling it, quote, an agonizing experience in every category I can think of, and others still waiting to be invented. Ouch.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from MsMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.